Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined River Song as she eats Impossible for breakfast in episode 437. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Pretty good.
How was your Impossible for breakfast?
Pretty good.
I'm still hungry.
That's impossible.
I watched the, is it Kaminsky?
Yes. Method.
I've watched the first 3 episodes. Oh, really good.
Isn't it good?
I'm really enjoying that. And you're right, it's nice. You can just kind of sit down and knock out, a 25-minute episode. And, of course, I watched 3 25-minute episodes in a row.
It's easy to do.
Yeah. I think what I like about it is The Wonder Boys is one of my favorite films with
I didn't even make that connection until you
Michael
said it.
Douglas.
But now that you say that, it's like, of course.
And it's shades of Grady in that, so I was very pleased. It's not like a copy but there's shades there, and so I think that's what makes
tonally
so enjoyable for me. But yeah, that's just terrific.
And you're old, so you get all the jokes.
Yeah, and Adam Arkin is just he is so good in it.
He's pretty much good in everything.
He is. That's true. And I think that's the only thing I watched this week because we talked. Have you seen Far From Home yet?
I have seen Far From Home, yeah.
Okay, because you and I had seen it last week. So
we made it out this week finally to go see it.
What'd you think of it, Sean?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I thought it's got some of the best, bar none, some of the best fight sequences in the MCU. I really liked the Mysterio angle that they did with it. I have to be careful because I don't want to still respecting.
Me, as a fan of the comics, I went into it knowing that there was
it
was not going to be what it was.
And not knowing anything about the comics, I still thought, but wait a minute, isn't he a
but good on them for trying.
But then on the heels of Captain Marvel, I almost started to buy into it.
Well, yeah, I did.
Considering what they do in Captain Marvel.
A, I thought it was too soon. B, Mysterio's such a big part of the Spider-Man mythos.
Yeah.
And C, the reveal that is pulled off right after the big reveal was much more of a surprise to me. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
And the fact that Ralphie's now been in two MCU, that blew me away. I kept looking at his eyes and I kept going, boy, this guy looks familiar. This guy looks really familiar. And then I saw some clickbait about Ralphie growing up to be that guy. And I went, what?
Yeah, it wasn't until I saw some memes.
And sure enough, I went and I looked, and that was the same character in Iron Man. It blew me away. I was like,
Ralphie's the scientist in Iron Man?
Ralphie from A Christmas Story.
No lie.
Yeah, Peter Billings.
He looks a lot older in these than he does in
IMDb. And I've seen him recently. He's got a full head of hair, so I think he's even shaved his head for that part.
I think so too.
So
yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I was like, it is Ralphie. Not Ralphie. Yeah, Ralphie.
Yeah, Ralphie.
Right. Yeah, Ralphie.
Remind me.
I was confusing with Randy there for a second.
Remind me after, and I will issue my one complaint about it. But because that one I don't feel like
that would be spoilery.
Yeah, I don't feel like I can get into that one without actually.
Ironically, I think my favorite parts of it were Peter being a student on vacation, trying to get his time alone with MJ more than anything else in the movie. I really enjoyed that stuff.
Yeah, it's really well done, and they handled the. They handled the snap really well, I thought. As they're calling it, the blip.
Well, did you see they further defined it? So
further defined it?
So the second snap is the blip. So the first snap is when everyone disappeared. The blip is everyone coming back.
That's not how they explained it. They explained
that's what Kevin Feige is now explaining.
Well, the film clearly defines that the blip is the fact that there was a bunch of people, from their perspective,
they
were
got
gone
raptured.
and then back.
Right.
They were gone and they were back, and they came back with just 5 years gone, but they didn't realize they had been gone.
Apparently, the coming back part is
for
the
that
blip.
long. So, I think the movie kind of clarifies as the whole thing was a blip for those guys.
Yeah.
For those
guys.
especially
for the people who disappeared, it was.
Yeah. The blip is the absence of the 5 years for them. Is what that is.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and realistically, everybody in this movie
Had blipped.
Not all of them, but no, there was the kid that was like in middle school when they blipped,
now
and then he
he's
came back
an
and
adult.
he's the same age as them.
Almost everybody in this movie was blipped. So. From a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view. Well, there's no confirmation that the teachers were blipped. They never. I mean, 5 years later, no big deal.
Well, I guess no. The one guy, he's got the great story about his wife pretending to.
Yes, yeah.
Martin Starr's
She
character
pretended to be blipped. So, yeah, no, I think you can assume most of the kids on that class trip were blipped. But obviously Flash and Ned and MJ and. But just that was great.
Yeah, no, it was enjoyable. I have two little, well, one little and one kind of big thing, but it was still enjoyable.
Did you guys watch anything else?
We watched Destination Wedding. It's Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder romantic comedy. Very, very different.
We're on a Keanu kick.
Yeah, the last movie reminded me that there's this other one that we wanted to see, and it's on Amazon Prime, so it was really easy. It's a short one. It's like maybe an hour and a half, but it's this guy and this woman who wind up going to this destination wedding, and they're both raging narcissists, and so they're just bagging on absolutely everything the entire time. And there are some really funny moments, and then there are some really just awkward comedy to it. If you like that sort of dark, deadpan, narcissist comedy, you'll probably like this.
Sean, right up your alley there.
Yeah, probably.
All the best jokes are kind of in the trailer, but there's some other stuff in there that are...
Oh, then I'll just watch the trailer and save myself the effort.
But there is some other stuff that's like, wow, I can't believe they did that. All right, that was the most awkward scene I've ever watched in my life.
I saw you reviewed Murder Mystery, so you must have decided to check it out.
Yeah, watch Murder Mystery.
Your review kind of said it all.
it was a thing. You know.
It was a thing.
It was there. Adam Sandler movies can kind of go either way. There are some that I really, really like 50 First Dates.
Yeah,
I really like that one. And then there are some that are just kind of there. Yeah. And this one had moments that were really good, but most of it was just kind of there. Mel actually fell asleep. So if that's an indicator of anything, you know. It's really a shame too, because with the cast, I mean, Terrence Stamp showed up, and I went, "Oh, well, that's automatically like 3 points."
Small role, though.
Doesn't matter. Terrence Stamp's in this. That's a 3-point raise right there, and still didn't go anywhere. But you know, we also went out and saw Stuber.
Yeah, how's that?
Surprisingly, a lot of fun.
Huh.
It is. It harkens back kind of to the old school action comedies. That just it's insane. It was. Batista is just. He's such a fun personality, and so to see him playing, you know, this cop, this kind of standard. Okay, yeah, he's Dave Batista. Go for it. And being paired up with this guy, and I'm glad they finally explained the joke too, because I have to be honest, I didn't get it. Stuber. It's just a guy's name, right? No. The other character's name is Stu. And he's an Uber driver. And they reference that in the movie. But just, that's funny because your name is... And I went, oh. Like literally it dawned on me in the theater. Yeah, right. So I appreciated the fact that they explained the title.
I don't think they give the character's name in the trailers that I saw.
Do they say it?
No, I don't think they
do.
No. Because I didn't know that either. I knew he was an Uber driver because I figured that's what the...
Well, the very first trailer I saw started with, "This is Stu. He's, it didn't say Uber driver. This is Stu. He's I don't know, they described him. And then it flashes to barista. It says, this is, whatever his name is. Vic, yeah. And so that was the first trailer. So that's why...
I apparently never saw
That's
the
why
first
I
trailer.
got to the point where I was like, okay, they must be doing a play on Uber, so...
Huh.
Yeah, two people I know besides you that have seen it said that they did not like it.
Really?
That it was just that the comedy doesn't land, and that what did he say? He said that unfortunately all the funny things are in the trailer, and he said that there's a lot of action that's unnecessary. And then I read a review. Oh, and he said the characters are the only thing somewhat enjoyable. And then I literally sat down right after that and read a review where somebody said the only good thing about this movie, or the not the only good thing, but the thing that keeps this movie, you interested in this movie, is the fact that you've got two characters that pretty much drag the movie along with their charm. So I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to see it. So it's because I saw the previews and thought it looked great, and so I'm encouraged to hear.
Yeah,
that
no, I
It depends
enjoy-
on how much you like the actors too.
Yeah, I could care less about either one of those guys.
Well, here's a bonus for you. Karen Gillan's in it,
Oh, is that
Really?
right?
and I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
She's on the poster, and I didn't know it until I came out of the theater and went,
didn't know that
huh. But so there's an added bonus that she and Batista have a whole thing. But yeah, no, it's just an enjoyable little movie, and it's better. Honestly, it's one of those movies that it's better than it has any right to be, because you watch that trailer and you kind of think, oh, this is that. I mean, my initial thought was this looks like Taxi, that old was it Fallon and Queen Latifah.
Oh yeah,
Where he's the
yeah.
cop and he has
Jimmy
to ride,
Fallon.
Jimmy Fallon, and he has to ride around in the taxi because he lost his license or something.
Is that what it was called?
I think so.
I think it was just called Taxi. That's what I've not even seen that one, quite honestly. But that was my initial thought. It's like, oh, it's like that. But we went and saw it, and it really is charming. They do have a lot of charm and a lot of chemistry between the two of them, and it's just a fun movie. And I disagree, because there was a whole sequence that's not in the trailer at all. And I laughed harder at that than I laughed at just about anything in theaters in a long time. So,
Well, the guy that plays Stu, he's on.
I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not even going to try to go there.
Shoot.
And I know he.
Is it Silicon Valley? The one on HBO that about the guys doing the startup? I think that's what it's called.
I know he was in The
Anyway.
Big
Yes,
Sick.
he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Big Sick is great. He's great in that.
And he's my least favorite character in that series, so I was like, okay. But
Well, and he was the voice of Pawnee in Men in Black International.
Yeah, and he was the best part of that. So, the little digital character.
did you guys see anything else?
No.
Cool.
No, I think that was it.
Let's move on to news.
Well, our bit of news this week comes from Radio Times. And they are claiming that there could be...
It does fall in the speculation and rumor category,
Yes.
but
So
because it's
Let's make
radio-
sure we clarify that
Because
this one
it's
comes
stretching
from
it a little
because
bit.
it's Radio Times,
the Radio Times, not the other source.
who has had a very good reputation and relationship with the BBC.
Yes. There could
Somewhat.
be an extra episode before the new series. So they're claiming that it's likely going to be a Christmas special this year, before Series 12 begins.
Yeah,
Next year.
It wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt at all, because I mean, going a
It's a good
full
idea.
year. I mean, we've done it before. We've had dry spells where Doctor Who hasn't been on for a year, but it would do them some good to keep it at least on the forefront in the minds of people, that especially new viewers that
Yeah.
are waiting for it to come back. So.
This article also points out that it's possible that the proposed episode will bypass the festive period altogether, airing in a less competitive time slot to give TARDIS team their best reintroduction this winter, and avoiding the usual holiday themes favored by previous Doctor Who specials.
So it's a
Christmas Eve special.
Christmas special that's not going to be about Christmas or air on Christmas.
Yeah,
A Boxing Day special.
There you go.
Maybe it'll just air the Saturday around Christmas.
We had a few tenants landed on Boxing Day for us, didn't we? That was back when they weren't doing day and date.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
I don't care
So
when it
maybe it'll
airs.
be-
I'll watch it if they do one.
So maybe it'll be like a special set between Christmas and New Year's, because the 28th on a Saturday or the 29th on a Sunday, that could easily be in the winter time. In the festive
Could easily
season.
be in the winter
It could
time.
easily
That will
be in the winter.
definitely be in the winter time.
Well, maybe. You
Well,
never
December
know.
28th.
Global warming,
That's
you know.
that's right in literal winter. So
I would like to see.
for the northern hemisphere.
I would like to just see a series of completely random holiday specials, like Flag Day or.
Let's just do a random
Flag
Valentine's Day episode.
Yeah, let's do it on a really, really American holiday. Flag Day.
Pick an obscure English holiday that I don't know about.
I don't know that I could.
Make one up.
Monday, one Monday of about every month. That's a bank holiday. So
Okay, let's do that one.
Anything else in the news?
Because we've had a Halloween one, and we've had an Easter one, and we've had Christmas, and now we've had New Year's.
Never on Halloween, though.
I'm sure we've had ones air on Halloween.
We've
but
had
they
them
weren't
probably
Halloween
around
themed.
Halloween.
Well, Waters of Mars was considered the Halloween special.
Yeah, but I mean, to
special
me, it would have to land on the holiday.
it was close to it.
And be about
Yeah,
the
but that's
holiday.
not on, so it's not.
It was Halloween weekend, Glenn.
Well, you could argue that anything that aired during the season when it was on in the fall near Halloween was.
You could also argue that every season premiere was an Easter special.
Well, they're not, because they didn't land on Easter.
Easter Saturday.
Any other news?
Nope, that's it.
Cool. All right. Well, should we move on to feedback?
Yes.
It's a rather bit of timely feedback actually
Yeah.
this week, and a bit of serendipity going on here.
Our feedback comes from Jamie.
Jamie writes, The Diary of River Song, Volume 1. Hi, Vortexers. This is a quick one that can hopefully be broken into 2 parts or read in the episode covering the second half. It's not often that I'm able to comment on a highlighted story at all around the time that you review it. Most of the time, it's reactionary to your comments on old episodes as I work through your backlog. So, The Diary of River Song from Big Finish. Currently up to 6 volumes with River, also appearing in Unit. Quick breakdown. Oh, I'm going to skip that, Jamie, just because we're going to get to those eventually.
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't proofread this. Speaking of Volume 1, this was good, and I did enjoy it. The main theme grated a little at first, but I've gotten used to it. Please tell me that there's hope then.
And he wrote that before before
you
we
guys
reviewed it.
issued
so.
your issues, yeah.
Alex Kingston took a little while to get used to audio, but she did, and you can tell it's River in these episodes. The Boundless Sea. Now, I really enjoyed this one. It brings River back to our archaeologist roots. We get weird alien tech, a vengeful mummy, and bits of the box set story arc. It's just a fun story. I went to a marvelous party. This introduces the big bad of the arc in The Rulers of the Universe. An enjoyable story, but I liked the first one a little better. River, however, continues to be in top form, and the introduction of Mr. Song as a possible future incarnation of the Doctor is done well. Signs. This is possibly the best of the lot. A mysterious incarnation of the Doctor, River's mystery illness, mysterious alien tech from the dawn of time, a really good two-hander. The character arc here is the best part of it all. Really, really good. And The Rulers of the Universe. With a name like that, you just know they're the bad guys. The Doctor is in his 8th incarnation and trying to avoid the Time War when he gets caught up in River's adventures. McGann shines in this. Alex Kingston is great. Keeping her identity a secret is well done here while still allowing for the two to interact. A really good box set, and one of the new series ranges that doesn't feel like a gimmick or that it's just there for fan service. River, without Stephen Moffat's guiding hand, turns out to be really fun. She also gets to shine apart from the Doctor, which I think is a good move. Overall, a good release, well worth the time to listen to. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jamie.
Jamie. That's it for feedback.
All right. Well, let's move on to our reviews of the second half of the River Song Volume 1 box set.
Signs. River Song is on the trail of the mysterious planet-killing spore ships. Nobody knows where they come from. Nobody knows why they are here. All they do know is that whenever the spore ships appear, whole civilizations are reduced to mulch. But River has help. Her companion is a handsome time-traveling stranger, someone with specialist knowledge of the oddities and dangers the universe has to offer. For Mr. Song has a connection to River's future, and he would never want his wife to face those perils alone.
Bum, bum, bum.
This was pretty good. I like this. At no time did I believe that this was an incarnation of the Doctor.
Oh, absolutely
At
not.
at no time at all. However, the writer of this pulls it off in at least presenting a convincing facsimile. And of course, it's later explained that because he read the diary, he got everything that he really needed in order to personify the Doctor and all of his traits and qualities. Obviously, does slip up a couple of places, but which ultimately she cottons onto. But it just the actor that portrayed the character, I thought was really good. I thought the chemistry between the two worked really well. If you didn't know better, you would believe that she was literally married to this man and knew him as well as she did the Doctor. I thought it was really kind of intriguing how we kept slipping in and out of the dream state River and the Waking River. I like how it starts off with the fact that we've already disclosed that she's been poisoned by the radiation, allegedly poisoned by the radiation from the I guess she is technically from the spore ship reactor. I like how they step through it where they're continually chasing this thing. They try to get ahead of it at one time and try to warn the planet that's going to be decimated next, only to get missiles fired at them. Really kind of enjoyable in the way that the story's weaved kind of back and forth, and we kind of do these little time jumps that are handled really well when you're trying to encapsulate an entire story in 50-some minutes. Especially something this grand with so many different plots and location, or not plots, but elements to the plot and locations and things like that. I thought that was really good. And I was quite surprised by the where it ends up with us finding out that the River's been a clone each time. And she has these trace memories of things that are going on, and the real River, who apparently has been locked away somewhere behind this door, actually consciously works through these clones. So she has a symbiotic connection to them. So that's why she can retain all the information that she does. She just doesn't necessarily retain every time this thing resets her, and starts again. So that big reveal was it caught me by surprise. I didn't realize that was happening. And fortunately, it does then later in the next story explain how Birdie could have perished because he was one of these clones as well. So, but just an immense amount of fun and a lot of emotion. Kingston turns in a fantastic performance, of a dying river. Dying river, that sounds weird. But of a dying river that she's at her end. But also then she'll bounce back with that enthusiasm and eagerness, even though she's in pain, to continue.
Well, until you realize that there are clones, you kind of wonder, well, is this medicine he's giving her actually killing her more than helping her?
Yeah.
It's...
Well, and I get the impression that he has influenced the health of these clones in some way, because after it's divulged that River has been a clone each and every time, he does say that he might have to increase the illness this time or decrease. I can't remember which one he said. And so it gave me the impression that he's instilling this sickness in the clones so that he can continue to use that as part of the ruse that she's dying
to
from
continue
this radiation.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said, and the disjointedness and the disorientation of the story really works in its favor. Most of the time, I don't tend to like it when I'm put on my back foot as much as I am in this one, not understanding what's going on. But this one's done so well that you're just swept along in it, and any disjointedness works in its favor in every aspect.
It does a nice job of putting you in the shoes of River.
Yes.
By her being disjointed, by it, the listener is disjointed as well, which really makes you sympathize and empathize with the characters we go along.
Yeah, and it's disjointed, but it's not confusing.
Right.
It's still clear of what's happening, where a lot of times where they get disjointed, they get too clever, and you get confused of what's happening.
It's at least somewhat linear, too, I think is what helps.
Yeah, I think so, too.
No, I yes, I agree with all of that.
All right, well, let's move on to. You're chomping at the bit to.
No, I am actually.
Get to the next one anyway.
No. Well, yeah, but okay. So there's a certain level of frustration that I do have with this one, and this one is so good and epic, and as you said, this massive story that is told in only 50 minutes. This is the perfect example of why the first story was not needed at all. Do that one as a prologue. If you really want to get me into this box set and you feel like you need to have this intro with this mummy story, okay, fine. Give me an episode 0, and then give me another story about these spore ships, because there's so much more here that could have been unpacked. There was so much potential. There's so much more about the history of these things that I want to know. There's so much about River and her quest to find out what's going on about these things, and the knowledge that, where did she pick all this information up at? She just has it. Okay, I know that we it's just something she did. Okay, great. But I wanted that adventure. And then to pair her up with, in this fantastic two-hander with this guy, Mr. Song. And as you said, this great chemistry, this fantastic relationship. And I did buy. And then I didn't. And then I did. And then I didn't. I really couldn't make up my mind if they were actually going to find a way to make this a future incarnation of the Doctor, whether via a parallel timeline or, if they were going to, actually just do it and we'll retcon him away at some other point in time later.
Set the groundwork with the Unbound series. So.
Or if it was, if it was going to be a con. I was off balance through probably half of the story before I finally went, no, this is not what this is, So I loved that, and I could have dealt with so much more of that kind of stuff. So there was an element of frustration there because it was so good. I thought Alex Kingston was phenomenal. I thought this actor was phenomenal. Apparently, he also played Morbius previously in Big Finish. And all the little touches. And this is a James Goss story, so there's a lot of fan service, as it were. But naming the ship the Sarah Jane, and just little squee moments that are just like, yeah, I buy that, and so much of that. To get to the reveal that River was being cloned was this gut punch, bag over the head. Did not see that coming at all, and just completely flabbergasted. And it wasn't until after everything was over with that I made the connection back to Birdie. Because that's how little I thought of that story.
Well, we do get a line in the next story.
It's the next story where they actually divulge that. And to be quite honest with you, after I had listened to it, even after they had, dropped the point that she had been a clone, I still didn't think about that being an excuse for Birdie until I got into the next story.
Yeah, until they dropped that line.
And River has figured it out. So
let's go ahead and get into the next one. Unless you guys want to talk more about this one. I mean, I really liked this one.
Yeah, the funny thing is, the more we like something, usually the less we talk about it because, there's not a lot to tear down. So they do a phenomenal job.
I do agree, Sean, that there could have been a lot more groundwork laid for the spore ships and more exploration aside from the one throwaway line in the previous story about a spore ship. And it felt like there's so much more untapped potential, like you said, for that storyline. Especially considering
where it goes. When you factor in the fourth story and how the spore ship plot ties in with the Rulers of the Universe plot.
Right.
That's the story. That's where this box set's going. It doesn't have anything to do with the Mummy.
And you almost kind of wonder there for a little bit as you're learning about the spore ships, are they going to tie this back to the spores, some weird offshoot of the spores, or what caused the mummies to begin with? But they never go there.
And this comes to the fact that I actually enjoyed the Mummy story, but I think that had there been more, my only problem with this story is, and it's not a problem because the focus is so much on the 2-act here, is the spores aren't doing anything other than flying from one location to the other and decimating planets, and so. I didn't care so much about it. I knew everything I needed to know about the spores, with the exception of maybe their genesis. I don't think that was
trying to explore,
which I don't think that was very clear yet at this point. And exactly, that's what she's trying to figure out in this. So to me, I think if you had done more with the spores, perhaps you could have done more with the spores, but I didn't need it or didn't want it. I didn't care other than. Tell me what they are, where they came from. I just
feel like if we're going to do an archaeological dig in the first story, why couldn't we have done an archaeological dig on a world decimated by the spores where she's digging up that information? Why can't we do something that actually ties into the story instead of random Mummy episode that doesn't?
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that is because it is story zero. I mean, yeah. I don't think that's my point. Is and just instead of renumbering it and slipping another story in, just call it what it is. It's an introductory. It's a reintroduction to River and put her in an element where she and it introduces it to Birdie. Now, unfortunately, the downfall of that is the Birdie that I enjoyed in that book is completely gutted and changed by the next 3 stories. So maybe that feels a little shoehorned to me for the story in order to connect that archaeology story. But to
maybe
me,
if you
didn't necessarily need. I don't need another story in there. I mean, yeah,
I don't know. Maybe if we went from Mummy
maybe
to
you could take
story.
you could take Mummy out of it altogether and just do these 3. But they're obviously not going to do that. So that's my point. Is story 1 is your story 0. It's the reintroduction. It's the soft open. It's the let's get us back. Let's get us reacquainted with River and who she is as a core character. And then really, it's a prelude and a trilogy is what it is.
Yeah,
and I get that, but I still feel like the prelude was a waste of.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that
bad.
I'm not trying to convince it to be better. I just my point is I don't think there needed to be a 5th story in here because I think really this ultimately could have just been a trilogy.
Yeah.
But let's talk.
You know what? You might be right, because if it had been just a trilogy, if we had just gotten started on the spaceship, we wouldn't have got the jarring disconnect between birdies, and we wouldn't have got this random, what happened to him mystery that then kind of got solved in a plot dropped point at the end of the 3rd book. Maybe you're right. Maybe doing it just as a trilogy would have solved a lot of the leftover
because
issues.
Introducing us to Birdie that early was not necessary.
Yeah,
and having him die so that we can have an answer for why he survives wasn't necessary either. So you could just do it in 3
And if you
stories.
think about how that second story is constructed, River showing up at a party that she's received a mysterious invitation to works just as well.
That's all you need.
Absolutely, that's all
Yeah.
you need. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. You've now solidified my point that the first story is completely pointless.
I don't know that it's pointless because it's still enjoyable, but it doesn't need to be in this set. Agreed. I agree with you there.
It's a pre-film pilot that was shot a year before the actual series started, and then they came up with this great story to move on from there.
Yeah. That's
what it is.
That's certainly how it feels too.
Well, let's move on to the rulers of the universe. As shocking secrets are exposed and a grand plan for the universe is revealed, River decides it's time she took control of events once and for all. Out in deep space, a clandestine society faces off with an ancient and powerful alien force. But for River, there's an added complication. The 8th Doctor has been caught in the middle, and she must make sure her future husband can arrive at his own destiny with all his memories, not to mention his lives, intact.
Okay, I'm really torn here, because all of the McGann elements get a dun-dun-dun, like a huge dun-dun-dun, because it was fantastic. His interactions with River, her interactions with him, all of the connectivity between those 2 threads was fantastic. But I spent so much time last week talking about how I was excited about getting River outside of the Doctor's influence that I feel like I'm betraying myself if I say that. I also feel like the River part of the plot was very convoluted Stephen Moffat reset button. We're just going to use time travel to fix everything, and ta-da. And while that's very much within River's MO to cheat and do something like that, it felt like a cheat, and it almost was unsatisfying. I can't quite make up my mind.
Yeah. No,
It kind of felt like a rush to get to a resolution as a
Yeah,
here's
maybe
an
a
easy
little
way. Here's an easy way we can destroy the ruler's ship.
Right.
But I thought it was a clever way to do that.
Nearly off camera,
Right.
as it were. But
See, and why I think back to why this works as a box set on 4 is it shows us the 4 different sides of River. It shows us River the archaeologist. It shows us River the manipulating
The detective.
River the detective, with some manipulation thrown in there. We see River, who has an intimate relationship, albeit it's a wrong guy, but she has an intimate relationship. I mean, the river we see is the river you see every time it's just River and the Doctor together. The conversations and and then in this one we see the time the playing with time, and we also see the desperation she has and the love she has for her husband. And so I think because we're at that point in this trilogy, I think it's okay to show the other aspects of River, which would be the cheating time in order to solve a problem. And so I guess for me, I agree where it feels like maybe it may have been a nice little wrap it up in a bow, but it also shows us another aspect of River that we're all familiar with, but it goes even further into the character and maybe explores those aspects of her better than anything we've ever seen, maybe with the exception of collectively, but anything individually we've seen on television so
Very
far.
agreed. I mean, it's very in keeping with her character.
And I think it lets her be both, because she's interacting with the Doctor and staying in line with how she acts with the Doctor, but then she's off doing this other thing that the Doctor's not aware of destroying the entire ship. Who cares who's on it? If they don't get on the escape pod, too bad. I mean, it's both Rivers at the same time in one story.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can use this argument, Sean, for not liking part of that, because even though it's written, the last episode is written as if River thinks it's the Doctor. So she is going to act like it's the Doctor, even though it's not really the Doctor. So her behavior in the last story should be along the same lines as any other time we've seen River. Just because it's a false incarnation doesn't mean anything.
Right.
She thinks it's the real thing.
He's the real
so
thing.
It's written and acted in the same way.
That's true. I feel hypocritical because I was so looking forward to the River box set and doing something not the Doctor. But then Paul McGann showed up, and it was just, yee!
But let me put it from this perspective. Going back to what I'm saying is showing all aspects of River is the Doctor is so integral in the story of River Song. So integral that if this had been the Doctor and River in all four of these stories, then it's okay, you've just put River in a Doctor Who story. But because we save McGann's part for the very last entry, it's just another piece of her. And so I think that's why it works for me. And also that she has to be very clever and conscious of the fact that she can't divulge any information. This is an incarnation prior to the three that we've seen her with on screen. And so she has to be real careful because now she's delving into events prior to their meeting. And so I think that this story does a really, really cool way of separating them so that it's not divulged to the Eighth Doctor who she is. I've been putting together a River Song timeline, which remind me, I'll show you before we leave what I've got done of it. And I've kind of been trying to do it spoiler free, but I know where the River timeline goes. But some of these ones we haven't reviewed, which is why I kind of backed off, because I'm going to kind of maybe add those as we go. But something that was this is a bit spoilery, but it sounds like there is a quick fix that happens later when she's introduced to further incarnations, past incarnations that aren't as cleverly done as this one. I mean, but I don't think you could have continue to have her encounter
use the same
past
trope every
incarnations,
time.
and use this.
You got to
thing
come
again.
up with new ways to have her interact.
But
with
unfortunately, it sounds like there's maybe a cheat fix for that later on in the series. But
she gets flashy thing, doesn't she?
Yeah. So I really appreciate. You're along the right lines. So I really appreciate what they did here to keep the two separated, so that we didn't create a paradox.
Well, and it's interesting too that especially when you looked at going back to the previous episode and the relationship that she had with Mr. Song, who I did for a while think was the Doctor, a future version of the Doctor. Although there were also moments where the way they played off each other, and even the guy's voice a little bit, was almost Capaldi. there was just a lot of reminiscent of her interactions with Capaldi in Husbands of River Song. That it felt that level of familiar.
I don't know. I got more of a Matt Smith vibe myself.
Really?
Yeah, because I think because I felt like
Latter Matt Smith vibe.
Yes, later. Yes, later.
Where they're more
not
on equal,
early.
where
Not,
they're
not,
more on equal
cer-
footing.
Certainly not his first season. Yeah, and I think the reason being is because, well, I think Capaldi took a more mature approach to their relationship. I think that I think the 11th Doctor appreciated her more, even though we get the conclusion. Actually, well, now I'm going to backpedal on that, because I think once we get that scene in Husbands of River Song where she is lamenting the fact that the Doctor didn't necessarily have the same love for her that she had for him, and then that's when he kind of reveals that he's there. Then it sort of does put it on the step of, yeah, he really did love her as much as he. So I suppose I can see that. Maybe there's a little bit of both. I don't know.
Well, I think more from the standpoint that maturity, I think, was kind of the right word. That the relationship that they have between her and Matt Smith seems very new and puppy dog love kind of. It feels like a young relationship.
I can see that.
Versus the time that she spends with Capaldi, which feels like almost an old married couple where they're comfortable with each other.
Although
and
if you
she
look
felt
at
comfortable with Mr. Song.
I think it was very similar to Capaldi, but also the latter Matt Smith, because if you look at Angels in Manhattan, it's a very similar relationship.
Yeah,
that's true.
That
one especially.
And name of the Doctor, even though there's not a lot of interaction, the scene at the end where he does reveal that he can see her. It's.
But when you compare that with the
then again,
interaction,
that's an older, more mature River Song too, because that's the ghost or memory of her too.
True.
So,
Yeah.
sorry.
But when you compare that relationship with the interactions with her and 8, and I just, that was a really interesting dynamic between the two of them to kind of go from one to the other. And it's the same guy, same software, different housing, as it were. And how much she stumbled over herself to not reveal things, and yet still had that connection, still had the level of comfort. And especially when she's describing him as he's so young, he's so idealistic, he thought he could, get away from the war. And I don't know, they just nailed it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Agreed.
And it's like, I don't know, it almost was a line that nobody but River could have delivered.
Oh, I agree.
Oh,
agreed. Yeah, wholeheartedly agree with that. What else? McGann turns in another stellar performance.
As
Absolutely
always.
loved him. He's just, all the Doctors are this way. They when they slip into the role, they're just, it's old hat for them. I never not believe that they are the Doctor, and I never ever think that they've missed a beat. Even Tom Baker, it's been the longest since he had filled the shoes, returning and then just feeling like he picks up where he left off. But there's something about McGann who feels probably the most comfortable in the role. And I think maybe that comes down to the fact that perhaps because they were alternating Doctors every month and he was doing a string of them in order to do the 8th Doctor series, I wonder if it's because he's maybe more intimate with his Doctor because he's behind the mic more often without the gaps. Now, granted, he has a longer break between because he'll record 4 or 5 of them and then be off for a while. But I wonder if it's because of so much time. He just feels the most comfortable in his personification of the Doctor, and it comes across here, and it shouldn't surprise me because it always is that way for me. I always feel like Paul McGann is the 8th Doctor. You know what I mean? There are actors that play a part, and some of them play it very well and so well that you believe that that's who they are. But Paul McGann, in fact, it would be hard for me, and I guess maybe because I haven't seen McGann in a lot of other stuff other than with Nell and I.
Yeah.
Just to me, Paul Mulcahy is the Eighth Doctor. I know actors hate to hear that because they feel like they're pigeonholed into one role, but he just feels like he is the Doctor to me.
I think some of what lends to that is the fact that the Eighth Doctor has grown with him. So all the other Doctors are trying to slip into their younger selves.
Yeah.
He gets to stay his age.
He does. You're right.
Especially in this
right.
instance where he's so close to his regeneration anyways.
Yeah, you're absolutely
so
right.
Just the idea of the Eighth Doctor trying to skirt the time more and helping out and picking up where he can. I've loved that idea since Night of the Doctor, and hearing a story of him doing that is just absolutely thrilling in my opinion.
Yeah.
I just that was the one part of it's this Eighth Doctor. It's not even a younger Eighth Doctor. It's near the end of his life, Eighth Doctor.
It's where we're at. I mean, we're a little behind that, I think.
Right.
Yeah, it's absolutely
it just fits with who he is as the Doctor too.
That really is kind of as you pointed out, everybody coming back to a role versus McGann kind of continuing a role.
Yeah.
And I've kind of always felt when we listen to an Eighth Doctor audio, it doesn't to me feel like a return as much as it is just, it just feels like he's the audio doctor.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately that, he's the audio doctor. And every time I listen to one, I lament all over again. My God, why can't we have more of this guy on TV? Because he's so good.
Well, that's the amazing thing about it. The growing with is he did the movie in, they shot it in 95. They released it in 96. And he was back in the role in 99, because this will be the 20th anniversary, right? Yeah. So he was back in the role for Big Finish, but only a year or two later.
Yeah.
So it is. He literally has grown with the role. He's continued the role.
But yeah, his whole arc was fantastic.
You know what I really appreciate about this too, the tie-in to the fact that at the beginning of the third story, she's trying to deactivate the reactor core, and she describes it as trying to pull pits from seeds from an orange or seeds from a tangerine. I can't remember.
Grapefruit.
No, she says tangerine or orange. I remember which it was. But I love that they changed it just enough to make it still similar, because McGann says it's like pulling pits from a grapefruit, and she laughs at that. And I thought because while it wasn't the exact same analogy, it was still the same
Close
analogy,
enough, yeah.
and I thought that was really cleverly done. Yeah, he calls it a grapefruit. But she called it. I think she called it an orange. I think she said seeds from an orange, and he said pits from a grapefruit.
You're right.
So good stuff, and
Yeah.
the fact that I love that she abandons Birdie on that desolate planet, and after they've crashed, only to find out that the gal that she's marooned on the other escape craft is going to end up landing on that same planet. Oh, you're going to have some company coming pretty soon. I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
That they both get their comeuppance, so they're going to kind of have to spend the rest of their as much time there as before they get off and show up in another River Song story, but which I don't think we've heard the last of either or one of them. But and then zaps out with the Vortex manipulator.
Yeah.
Okay, Birdie, I've got it this time. It's good stuff.
Then there's that theme.
Yeah, I didn't even bother the second. The second two that we listened to, I knew when it was coming, and I just skip forward, and then at the end I'd skip forward and skip again to get into the next one. So,
Dun dun dun.
it's good stuff. I'm looking forward to some more River Song box sets. It'll be interesting to see what they do with other incarnations of the Doctor. I am under the impression that all of them at least have one incarnation of the Doctor, so be prepared for that. And I think there's one of them that has two. I think one of them has
the next
Colin,
box set has
Colin and Sylvester. Right?
Yeah.
So we're not taking her Claire out of Doctor Who, and which is to your point. But again, I think that if all of the stories had been with the Doctor, then there would have been I'd have had an issue with it. But because the Doctor is such an integral part of her life, having one and maybe even two in the next one is okay. I don't think that's a and especially in this particular situation, keeping that until the end, giving her all of that room to be River Song on her own, and then bring the Doctor at the end, I think works even better. I think had you done it any sooner in this box set, now later I hope they do mix it up a little bit, but because it becomes kind of formulaic, although it won't this time because they've obviously got two.
Right.
But for this particular set, waiting until the end to introduce that aspect of her life, or to put that aspect of her life in this story, in this arc, works really well for me and gets around that. I think both you and I both said that we were excited to find out what River was like on her own. I don't think that cheapens that in any way by adding the Doctor into one of the stories, and by doing it at the end of this set, I think works really well. No,
it kind of becomes a, it's almost a nice bonus feature. It's
yeah.
It's kind of a extra credit.
Yep.
So there's that. And I mean, there's plenty of opportunities now that we've established the character. And I suppose in retrospect, it totally makes sense. Okay, we're going to spin this character off from Doctor Who, even though she's on her own thing. But, well, we've got to include the Doctor at some point, And now that once you've done 8, well, that sets the precedence for we get to show her introducing all the rest of them. We can do that in audio, whereas you can't do that in television. In television, we know that she's met all the other versions, but we can actually show it here. So I should have expected that.
Right.
But it'll still be nice to see it, or listen to it, or hear it.
To me, that's what's exciting, is getting to hear her interact with the other incarnations and seeing what kind of stories they can tell with those Doctors, and still staying true to those Doctors and true to River.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Cool. Well, what do we got come up on the schedule, Sean?
Well, coming up next week on the schedule, we've got some interesting things, including some Titan comics. We're going to be doing Volume 1 of the 13th Doctor, as well as the Free Comic Book Day special. So hopefully you got out back in May and procured one of those and were able to get to your local comic book dealer for one. I'd love to be able to tell you that if you didn't, we got you covered, but that's not the case, unfortunately, this year. We did not have any extras to hand out. So.
In fact, we passed around an issue this year because Keith and I didn't manage to get it.
Yep.
But so we'll be covering the 13th Doctor Volume 1 and the Free Comic Book Day, as well as a kind of a bit of a throwback for Big Finish, the very first companion chronicle, Frostfire. Starring Miss Vicky and a special guest, if all goes well, which I won't talk about just in case it doesn't go well.
Just in case it doesn't happen, yeah.
Don't want to promise.
But I think it's going to go well. So.
And of course, we'll cover any news that drops tomorrow after we've recorded.
We've been lucky the
for
last
all the
couple
news
of
that
weeks.
will drop tomorrow after we've recorded, and next week.
And for that news that drops tomorrow, if people want to react to it, how can they send us feedback?
They can just go to our website, travelingthevortex.com, and fill out the Send Us Feedback tab, or you can send it directly to feedback@travelingthevortex.com.
And don't forget to support us on Patreon. All that money goes straight back into this show, and thank you very much. If you're already supporting us there, it is much appreciated. Is there anything else we need to do before we close this show out? If not, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
Now I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.